Prepare to throw out your old soil amendment routine. In just minutes, I'm going to show you how to engineer forever soil, a living, breathing ecosystem that never needs external feeding. These three foundational ingredients are the key to unlocking perpetual nourishment for your plants, and a truly hands-off gardening experience. Your garden will thank you. The endless cycle of buying amendments, fertilizers, and soil conditioners season after season has become so normalized in modern gardening that most of us never question whether there's a better way. We've been conditioned to believe that soil is an inert medium that requires constant external inputs to remain productive, when in reality, nature has been building and maintaining incredibly fertile soil for millions of years without any human intervention whatsoever. The forests around us aren't fertilized. The prairies that once covered vast continents weren't amended, yet they sustained unimaginable biodiversity and productivity year after year, century after century. The secret lies in understanding that healthy soil isn't something you create through addition alone, but rather an ecosystem you cultivate that becomes self-perpetuating once the right conditions are established. The concept of self-feeding soil might sound revolutionary, but it's actually just working with natural processes that have always existed. When you set up the right foundational components, your soil develops the ability to cycle nutrients internally, capture and store resources efficiently, and continuously improve its own structure and fertility without requiring your constant intervention. This isn't about abandoning your garden to neglect, it's about transitioning from being the sole provider of everything your soil needs to becoming the facilitator of natural processes that do the heavy lifting for you. The three ingredients I'm about to share create a synergistic system where each component enhances the others, establishing feedback loops that strengthen over time rather than depleting. This is the difference between treating symptoms and addressing root causes, between dependency and autonomy in your garden ecosystem. The first and most critical ingredient in creating self-sustaining soil is a consistent layer of undisturbed organic matter on your soil surface, specifically materials like wood chips, leaves, straw, or any carbon-rich material that breaks down slowly over time. This mulch layer does far more than most gardeners realize. It's not just protecting your soil from erosion or conserving moisture, though it certainly does both of those things beautifully. What's happening beneath that protective blanket is absolutely magical from a biological standpoint. As fungi and bacteria begin colonizing and breaking down these materials, they create the foundation of a complex food web that extends deep into your soil profile. The beauty of this approach lies in mimicking what happens on any forest floor where leaves, twigs, and branches continuously accumulate and decompose in place. The organisms that colonize these materials, particularly fungi, form extensive networks that connect plants, transport nutrients across distances, and create soil structure through their high-fall threads. These fungal highways become the infrastructure of your self-feeding system, allowing nutrients to move where they're needed, and creating stable pathways for water and air circulation. Meanwhile, as the organic matter slowly decomposes from the bottom up, it releases a steady stream of nutrients exactly when and where your plants need them, rather than in the boom and bust cycles typical of synthetic fertilizers. What makes this ingredient truly foundational is its ability to attract and sustain beneficial organisms that do the real work of soil building. I've seen gardens transformed within a single season simply by applying a thick layer of wood chips or leaves and leaving them undisturbed. The soil beneath becomes darker, richer, and increasingly populated with earthworms, beetles, millipedes, and, countless microscopic organisms that process organic matter into plant-available nutrients. The key is resisting the temptation to till or mix this material into your soil, and instead, letting nature's decomposition processes happen right on the surface. Exactly as they would in wild ecosystems creates far superior results to our mechanical interventions. While organic matter provides the foundation, worm castings serve as the accelerator that jumpstarts and, honestly, supercharges your self-feeding soil system. These tiny pellets of processed organic matter are quite possibly the most perfect fertilizer nature has ever created, containing not just a complete spectrum of plant nutrients in readily available forms, but also beneficial microorganisms, enzymes, and growth hormones that stimulate plant development in ways we're only beginning to understand. When you introduce quality worm castings to your soil, you're inoculating it with billions of beneficial bacteria and other microorganisms that came from the worm's gut. essentially transplanting a thriving microbial community directly into your garden. The reason worm castings work so brilliantly in creating self-sustaining soil is that they provide both immediate nutrition and long-term soil building capacity. The nutrients in castings are held in a form that doesn't leach away with the first rain like synthetic fertilizers do, yet they remain readily available for plant uptake when needed. Additionally, the microbial populations in quality castings continue reproducing and colonizing your soil long after application, establishing permanent populations that process organic matter and cycle nutrients indefinitely. This creates a living system rather than just a nutrient deposit, transforming your soil from a static medium into a dynamic, self-regulating ecosystem. You don't need massive quantities of worm castings to achieve these results, which is honestly pretty fortunate because, well, quality castings can be expensive if you buy them. A light application of maybe a quarter to half-inch spread across your garden beds, or even just a handful worked into each planting hole, can provide enough microbial inoculation and nutrient boost to really kickstart the system. Better yet, consider establishing your own small-scale vermicomposting operation using a simple bin system. Worms will happily process your kitchen scraps and other organic waste into an endless supply of castings, creating a closed loop where your household waste becomes the fuel for your self-feeding soil system. The investment in a worm bin pays dividends forever, quite literally, as those worms continuously reproduce and produce castings as long as you keep feeding them. The third ingredient that completes the self-feeding soil trinity is biochar, and this one might seem a bit more unusual if you haven't encountered it before, but its effects are honestly nothing short of remarkable. Biochar is essentially charcoal created through a specific process that produces an incredibly porous material with a massive surface area. Think of a microscopic sponge with countless tiny chambers and passageways. This unique structure allows biochar to absorb and hold nutrients that would otherwise leach away, store moisture during wet periods and release it during dry spells, and most importantly, provide long-term housing for beneficial microorganisms that colonize its porous interior. What makes biochar truly special as the catalyst in your self-feeding system is its longevity. While organic matter eventually decomposes completely, and worm castings provide their benefits over months to a couple of years, biochar persists in your soil for centuries, potentially even millennia. Archaeological sites have revealed terra preta soils in the Amazon rainforest that remain incredibly fertile hundreds of years after ancient civilizations created them by incorporating biochar. And these soils are still significantly more productive than surrounding unmodified soils. When you add biochar to your garden, you're making a one-time investment that continues paying dividends for longer than you'll be gardening. Quite possibly, longer than you'll be alive. The magic happens when biochar interacts with your organic matter layer and worm castings. The biochar becomes charged with nutrients from the castings and decomposing organic matter, then slowly releases those nutrients while simultaneously hosting microbial colonies that enhance nutrient cycling. These microbes living in the biochar's protected chambers are buffered from environmental extremes and predation, allowing them to thrive and multiply in ways they couldn't in regular soil. The result is a dramatic increase in overall biological activity that accelerates decomposition of organic matter, enhances nutrient availability, and improves soil structure, all while the biochar itself remains stable and continues performing these functions indefinitely. You can purchase biochar from various suppliers, or if you're adventurous, create your own through careful burning of organic materials in a low-oxygen environment. Either way, a relatively small amount goes a long way. Typically you'd apply biochar at a rate of perhaps 5 to 10% by volume, mixing it into the top few inches of soil where root activity and microbial populations are highest. Once you've established these three foundational ingredients in your garden, the ongoing maintenance becomes remarkably minimal compared to conventional gardening approaches. Your primary task shifts from constant feeding and amending to simply replenishing the organic matter layer as it decomposes, which might mean adding a fresh layer of wood chips or leaves once or twice a year depending on your climate and how quickly materials break down. You'll also want to avoid practices that disrupt the system you've created. Minimizing tillage preserves fungal networks and soil structure, keeping the soil covered protects microbial populations from temperature extremes and UV radiation, and maintaining living roots in the soil as much as possible through succession planting or cover cropping ensures continuous food sources for your soil organisms. The beautiful thing about this system is that it genuinely improves over time rather than depleting. Each season, your soil becomes darker, richer, and more structurally sound as organic matter accumulates, microbial populations expand, and the biochar becomes increasingly charged with nutrients and colonized by beneficial organisms. You'll notice your plants becoming more resilient to stress pest pressure, decreasing as plant health improves, water management becoming easier as soil structure develops, and yields increasing without corresponding increases in inputs. This is the essence of regenerative gardening, creating systems that build rather than extract, that give more than they take. Pay attention to what your garden is telling you through observation. Healthy self-feeding soil has a rich, earthy smell, visible earthworm activity, and organic matter that's actively decomposing rather than just sitting inert on the surface. If you notice issues like organic matter not breaking down or persistent nutrient deficiencies even though your system is established, these are signals to investigate and adjust. Maybe your soil needs a bit more nitrogen to fuel decomposition, or perhaps your climate calls for different organic matter choices, or possibly your soil biology could use a boost with some extra worm castings or compost tea applications. The key here is really viewing your role as a facilitator and observer rather than a controller, working with the natural processes you've set in motion, instead of trying to micromanage every single detail. Your journey to truly self-sustaining soil is both an end goal and, honestly, an ongoing process of learning and adaptation. Every garden is unique, with its own combination of climate, existing soil conditions, and available materials, so expect to experiment and adjust these principles to your specific situation. The fundamental concept stays the same though. By providing organic matter for food and structure, worm castings for microbial inoculation and nutrient cycling, and biochar for long-term nutrient retention and microbial habitat, you create the conditions for soil that genuinely feeds itself with minimal ongoing intervention from you. If you're excited about transforming your gardening approach and creating soil that works for you, instead of requiring constant work from you, make sure you're subscribed to the Living Soil Lab. We're always exploring regenerative techniques that build truly sustainable gardens. And you really won't want to miss the upcoming content on advanced soil biology, water management strategies, and integrated pest management through soil health. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and share this video with any gardeners in your life who are tired of the endless amendment treadmill. Together we can revolutionize how we grow food and cultivate beauty, one self-feeding garden at a time.